Well, on this momentous day, as we celebrate the 76th Republic Day, our hearts they swell with pride as the tricolour waves high in the sky and the nation gathers to honour the Constitution, our sovereignty, and our shared legacy. Today is not just a commemoration of history, it's a reaffirmation of our commitment to progress and unity. As the sun rises this glorious morning, people, we'll dive into the stories that define our present and secure our future. From the historic camaraderie between India and Indonesia, rooted in shared cultural ties and strategic partnerships, to, of course, the challenges posed by an increasingly assertive China and our ambitious naval modernization to safeguard our waters, we're going to be covering it all. And let's not forget the heartbeat of this celebration on the Kartavya Path, on the screens, the Republic Day Parade, the majestic showcase of India's military might, our cultural diversity, and indomitable spirit. As we bring you our Republic Day special rolling coverage, we're also going to be bringing you expert insights, discussions with decorated veterans, and visuals that are certainly going to fill every Indian's heart with pride. So stay with us as we honor our past, analyze our present, and envision a stronger, more resilient India. Some of those visuals that we're going to be beaming on our screens from across the country of how iconic landmarks have donned the tricolour. Srinagar, Lal Chowk, people celebrating the 76th Republic Day. Visuals right from this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Visuals from Kochi on your screens. Republic Day celebrations taking place across the length and breadth of the country. A pure showcase of the country's unity and diversity. The Ujjain Temple also celebrating the Republic Day. The tricolour fervour quite apparent as well. And that's not all. The Indonesian delegation that is also in India, because the chief guest of the 76th Republic Day is the Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto. The Indonesian delegation at that ceremonial dinner singing Bollywood songs. The preparations on the Kartavya Path meanwhile continue. Visuals from Kolkata on your screens. We're going to continue to show you all those visuals of how the entire country is celebrating. That's the RBI building. Like I said, important institutions, iconic landmarks, all donned in the tricolour and the festive fervour. Joining us here on the broadcast this very morning, this glorious morning rather, is Lieutenant General P. Ravi Shankar, former Director General of Artillery, the Indian Army, Vice Admiral Biswajit Das Gupta, former Flag Officer, Commanding-in-Chief, Eastern Naval Command. A very warm welcome to you, sir. And Squadron Leader Deepthi Kala, Defence Expert and ex-Indian Air Force Officer. A very warm welcome to you, Squadron Leader, as well. You know what, Sandeep? I'm going to quickly get the snowball rolling and ask you that quintessential question. What was it like celebrating Republic Day? What's your earliest childhood memory of Republic Day? Getting up in the morning. I remember in school you had to go through a proper inspection. Not like those regular days. This was a special day. You couldn't have any kind of spots on your white uniform. Prepare for the march past. Practices were on. What was it like for you?
Absolutely, it was pretty much the same for me as well, Kabir. In the 1980s, which is my earliest memory of Republic Day. But you know, I'd like to say that one of the people who I really miss a lot on this Republic Day is Brigadier Sawant, Brigadier Chitranjan Sawant. For me, all of the Republic Day mornings was Brigadier Sawant's voice coming through on Doordarshan, that commentary of his. The Hindi that he spoke was something that we all kind of, it was the envy for all of us, the way he spoke, and he described the foggy morning and all of that. So a lot of my Republic Day memories are about his voice. He was literally the voice of the Republic Day parades for all of us. And of course, the rest, you just described it yourself. Getting up early in the morning, doing the march past, doing the flag hoisting, all of that. So lots of very, very evocative memories, Kabir, of Republic Day.
All right. Lieutenant General Shankar, if I could bring you here on, at this occasion, a very happy Republic Day to you as well. We're getting visuals of how various chief ministers, all those dignitaries are celebrating this momentous occasion across the country. But, talk to us about the India-Indonesian ties as well. The chief guest, our first chief guest was an Indonesian president, and it seems like we've come full circle here as well.
Thanks a lot. At the outset, a very, very happy Republic Day to everyone who's watching this telecast, as also people on my panel, and to you, Kabir and Sandeep also. Thanks a lot. India and Indonesia. Most of us forget that Indonesia is one of our neighbors. When you go to Andaman Nicobar, the southernmost point, Indra Point, and you take off from a helicopter and you see Indonesia. It's a very close neighbor of ours. And it is after India, probably it's the next rising power, and it's slowly risen. And we have some tremendous relations with Indonesia over a period of time. We also tend to forget that a whole lot of our culture is resident in Indonesia. And Indonesia is a pivotal nation in the Southeast Asian region, right? Actually, Indonesia straddles the area between the Pacific and the Indian Ocean. And to that extent, I think Indonesia is a very important nation for India. We've had very good relations with them. We've had good military equations with them, and we've had good cultural and trade and economic equations with them. Is there scope for improvement of this relationship? Definitely. There's a lot of scope and a lot of space for increasing our relationship. And this is a feeling which I think is mutual, both from Indonesia and India. From the Indonesian perspective, Indonesia has largely been alternating between USA and China. It looks largely to USA for its security needs and looks largely towards China for its trade come that it is time to start
Well, it seems
look.
like a little bit of a technical difficulty with the general over there. Admiral, I'm going to come to you next, but before that, take a look at this really light-hearted moment that took place at the ceremonial dinner last night, where the Indonesian delegation, they sprang up, and of course, amidst all these, greetings that were shared. President Murmu over there, the Indonesian president, of course, Prabowo Subianto, from their particular faces, it didn't seem like they were having too much of fun. It seemed like a lot of rehearsal went through behind that performance.
Yes, before I respond to you, Kabir, firstly, let me wish all of you a very happy Republic Day. And yes, I'm glad that, General Shankar made a mention about the Indonesia being one of our closest neighbors. And if you, like he said, if you went to the Andamans and you looked at, the Indonesian landmass in the Indian Ocean, you'd find it is much closer than many other countries and many other neighbors. So, in fact, it is our closest maritime neighbor. And yes, there is a lot of rehearsal, I'm sure, that went into that Bollywood number. But there is no denying that there is a huge Indian cultural influence in Indonesia, which improves the bonds of our friendships. And even as we have seen in the Indian Navy, as I've seen over the last 40 years plus, we have had a lot of training exchanges. There has been a lot of interpersonal exchanges between, the armed forces of India and Indonesia. The Indian naval establishments, the schools, always have participation from the Indonesian Navy and the armed forces, and therefore there is a fair amount of friendship and camaraderie that plays between the two countries, not just at the political level, but also I think at the working level of the armed forces. So I'm really not surprised that these guys are enjoying themselves at the banquet. And the Indian soft power is all too visible across the world. And definitely in Indonesia. As far as the Indonesian, relationship, as you mentioned, I think as far as India is concerned, and the Indian maritime forces are concerned, I think Indonesia is a very, very critical neighbor with whom we must always have very cordial and friendly relations. As you are aware that, the Indian Ocean is sort of surrounded by several important choke points, and the eastern choke points actually all belong to Indonesia. Whether it is the Malacca or the Sunda or the Lombok or the Umbai Beta, they pass between Indonesian islands, and therefore it is a extremely important and critical country as far as our maritime security, safety, and national security is concerned.
Right.
Apart from every other thing that has been mentioned.
Well, Sandeep, the Admiral has made some pertinent points here.
Yes.
And there's a lot of shared legacy and history between these two countries as well.
Indeed.
Jawaharlal Nehru, from Nicobar, traveling to Indonesia on, a ship. There's so much to talk about as well. But the Bandung, summit, walk the viewers through, the shared legacy that these two countries also share.
Absolutely. And before that, Kabir, I just want to add to what the Admiral said, that how Indonesia is really close to India. And when we are standing in the Nicobar Islands, it's just about 80 nautical miles away from Indian territory. That's the Nicobar Islands. That's less than the distance between Delhi and Jaipur. That's how close Indonesia is to Indian territory. So that's something we forget because the Andaman Nicobar Islands are so far away from the Indian mainland. But coming back to India and Indonesia, well, there is a shared history of more than 1,000 years. Indonesia, in fact, the name Indonesia itself derives from the Indus River. So that is the very name of the country itself is derived from the Indian subcontinent. And of course, you have a very rich legacy of civilizational connect. You have Hinduism, Buddhism, all of this which travel from the Indian mainland into Indonesia. And today Indonesia is very much a mirror of India, as in it is a secular republic, it is a very progressive republic, it is a democracy, and the importance of the Indonesian president's visit cannot be understated enough, because the fact that it comes at a time when you're looking at a very unstable regional neighborhood, especially in India's eastern neighborhood, where our Act East policy is under threat, because you have two very significant neighbors, Bangladesh and Myanmar, in a state of flux. Their internal unrest in both of these very critical countries. And at that moment like this, Indonesia comes out as being extremely critical to us. But going back to the question that you raised, the Bandung Conference, 1955, more than almost 70 years ago, it actually laid the foundations of the non-aligned movement, Kabir. The fact that you were two countries that just came out of colonial occupation. The Dutch had occupied the Indonesian islands, and of course after that it was the Japanese. The Dutch tried to recapture Indonesia. Of course they failed. India had just come out of British colonialism, and both of these countries were looking at a future, and they said, we are not going to be with either power bloc, neither with the NATO, the Western-led NATO, nor with the Warsaw Pact countries of the East. So Indonesia and India were partners in that non-alignment, that movement that began in 1955. So the Bandung Conference, where Prime Minister Nehru and President Suharto were two of the leading lights that actually helped put this together, and they actually lay the foundations of the non-alignment movement, the NAM movement that began there, and it of course continued through the Cold War. Of course, it might have lost a lot of its relevance today, but given the fact that two of the founding members are back together 75 years later, tells you a lot, Kabir.
Well, absolutely. Squadron Leader Dipti Kala, I'd like you to come in on this, where Sandeep exactly left us, and some sort of instability that we see, and our Act East policy that's under threat, maritime security, and we're looking at China's challenge in the Indo-Pacific for India as well. We've got Prime Minister Narendra Modi's reaction. Listen into this, Squadron Leader. On the other side, we're going to come for your reaction.
Your Excellency, Rashtrapati, and my brother Prabowo Subianto, दोनों देशों के डेलीगेट्स, मीडिया के सभी साथी, नमस्कार। भारत के पहले गणतंत्र दिवस पर इंडोनेशिया हमारा मुख्य अतिथि देश था और यह हमारे लिए अत्यंत गर्व का विषय है कि जब हम गणतंत्र के 75 वर्ष मना रहे हैं, इंडोनेशिया एक बार फिर इस ऐतिहासिक अवसर का हिस्सा बना है। इस अवसर पर मैं राष्ट्रपति प्रभो उसका भारत में हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं। साथियों, 2018 में मेरी इंडोनेशिया यात्रा के दौरान हमने अपने साझेदारी को कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के रूप में आगे बढ़ाया था। आज राष्ट्रपति प्रभोवो के साथ आपसी सहयोग के विभिन्न पहलुओं पर व्यापक चर्चा हुई।
Squadron Leader, over to you. Prime Minister calls President Subianto my brother Prabowo and also calls Indonesia India's Mukhya Atithi.
Absolutely. Kabir, at the outset, first of all, a very good morning and a very happy Republic Day to everyone out there and to the entire country. I remember last year, exactly on this day, I was in talking with Sandeep on women's empowerment on 26 January 2024. So it's very nostalgic for me. It is nostalgic in two ways also, Kabir, just, about the conversation that you started before. Being a daughter of an army officer, I used to be there like as a child, seeing live the 26th January parade. And then in 2015, I had the opportunity to be there and doing the Republic Day parade as an Air Force officer. So it's an amazing day for me, wherein I bring all the memories of being a childhood and as an Air Force officer. Now, you asked about this is what was coming to me when I was listening to our Prime Minister, that he is that, person of the country who looks like 50 years beyond from now. So the kind of words he has used, brother, right, for the Indonesian president, it already talks about that what is it that we can look forward to Indonesia and Indian ties in future. Because when we, I'll tell you something from the Air Force angle, that for maritime, Indonesia is an archipelago of thousands of small islands, and it's of utmost importance for the maritime, right, for the Indian Navy. But when it comes to Air Force, the Indonesia and Indian ties have not been, or the collaborative exercises are yet to be developed. In fact, no combined exercises have taken place in the airspace as of now. So probably that is what we can look forward from here. The most important for Indonesia and India has been the maritime ties and then the army ties. We've been helping Indonesia a lot in terms of the earthquakes and natural calamities. So and as we have already discussed, the culture, the heritage, and a lot of it has been going to Indonesia from the Indian land. So when it comes to Air Force ties or Air Force collaboration, that is what I feel that is where something we would be looking for in future for better collaborations. However, the defense collaborations that have already happened and the articles that I've also read, I've understood that India and Indonesia have lot in common when it comes to defense collaborations. So that is what we can look forward from here, and I look forward again a lot when it comes to Air Force and Indonesian Air Force ties.
You know, a pertinent point that you've raised over here, Squadron Leader, the aviation challenge and how we could close in on that gap as well. But before my next question, let's also listen in to what the Indonesian President, Prabowo Subianto, had to say.
Your Excellency, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, my good brother, esteemed ministers, high officials from Indonesia and from India, friends from the media. Once again, namaste. I would like to reiterate my highest gratitude for the great honor given to me being received today in my first state visit to India. I was received with great honor today by the President of India, and we had a very intensive, very frank discussion between Prime Minister Modi and his government and myself and my government team. We discussed many key sectors of common interest in which we would like to accelerate the level of cooperation.
You know, Admiral Das Gupta, when we talk about maritime security, we talk about indigenous shipbuilding as well. And what a red letter day for the Indian Navy very recently when the Prime Minister commissioned 3 warships, a frigate. You had the INS Vagshir also as part of those 3 that were commissioned. 3 naval platforms commissioned on a single day. What does that tell you about how far and long we've actually come when we talk about indigenous shipbuilding and maritime security?
Well, we've come a long way. But before I really answer that question fairly, let me also say that, commissioning of 3 warships or submarines, a combination thereof, together on a single day is also a matter of timing. And it's just that, 3 have concurrently finished their trials and you got ready for commissioning, and therefore it's rather opportune that they got commissioned on the same day. And since it's been such a big event, the Prime Minister himself had graced the occasion to commission these 3 vessels. But that notwithstanding, no credit is taken away from the Indian shipbuilders, the design teams, and our shipyards. We started on the indigenous shipbuilding journey many, many decades ago. In fact, our first indigenous warship was built by the Garden Reach shipbuilders and engineers somewhere in the later part of the 60s. It was a small vessel called INS Ajay. And subsequently, the first major naval platform that we built in the Mazagon docks was INS Nilgiri, which was a Leander-class frigate that was commissioned by erstwhile Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi on the 3rd of June, 1972. And it is, rather coincidental that the new avatar of INS Nilgiri, which is the Project 17 Alpha ship, which was also commissioned by the Prime Minister very recently. So we have come a long way, and the content and quality of our shipbuilding has progressively become better and better. The indigenous content of our warships these days is close to 70%, I should think. There are certain critical areas in which we do not have the technology as yet. But I think that is one of our thrust areas as we progress towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. There are certain technologies that have been denied to us for many, many decades, starting from the Industrial Revolution. In fact, one of our erstwhile prime ministers had mentioned that we have been orphans of the Industrial Revolution, and therefore we have already lost out on a lot of technology over the last few decades. And now I think we are trying to make up for it with global cooperation, as well as with a lot of indigenous thrust on Atmanirbharta, on startups, on collaborations with various technical partners. And we have a full-fledged warship design bureau in the Indian Navy, which not many countries or navies can boast of. And therefore, from the smallest vessel to the largest aircraft carrier, that INS Vikrant, that was built by Cochin Shipyard and commissioned in 2022. It has all been the effort of the Indian naval designers in uniform So Warship Design Bureau has come a long way. Indian shipbuilding has come a long way. Indian submarine building has come a long way. You're aware that we are also building SSBNs. So, the entire spectrum of naval platforms we are very, very capable of building. Certain gaps exist in technology areas, which we will make good.